right, well, welcome back to Moves That Matter. I'm Michael Looney. I'm the Vice President of Economic Development with the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce. And I'm here with a very special guest and good friend. County Judge Lane Carter is joining us today to discuss economic development and how municipalities and counties function. And welcome, Lane. Thanks so much for being here today. It's great to see you.
Be with you, Mike.
Well, you've been county judge. How many years has it been so far?
I'm on my fourth year, my first term.
Okay, so you're 4 years in. You came from a very different background before you felt the calling to get into municipal management and a leadership role to serve people. You served people in other ways. Tell me about that.
Well, a pretty diverse background. I started off through college thinking about medical school because I wanted to be of that service, specializing in orthopedics. It had a different pool, weighing the options with family life and shadowing different physicians. And I figured that I'd wanted to stay in the medical field, but not so much being as an MD purpose. So I actually went to nursing school after graduating with a bachelor's in biology and completed that with a bachelor's in nursing, worked as an ER nurse for 2 years, and then an OR nurse in the operating room, specializing in orthopedics for about 4.5.
So that's fascinating. That I've known you for a long time, and I knew a little bit about your background in the healthcare sector. Specifically, would that be considered a trauma nurse? Is that what ER is? ER sounds like it's frontline work.
You kind of see a vast array of things walking through the door, based off of trauma, heart attacks, all the way down to an ear infection.
So the way I'm looking at your first career, a very formative part of your life, is a little deeper, and yes, there's the actual craft that you were in, but also the why.
Yes.
And I always like to get to the why. I find that fascinating that you felt a calling, enough of a calling to go through quite heavy duty educational curriculum in order to get to that ER and then orthopedic surgery nurse, working right there on the front lines. But there's a calling to help people.
Exactly.
And so I think that I see that a lot with friends that I have, friends that mutual friends we have who are in the healthcare and what I call frontline services. They're either EMTs or trauma nurses or MDs, emergency surgery, dealing with a whole host of different types of maladies that come walking through the door that you don't have time to prepare for. You might get a radio call and you might have 3 or 4 or 5 minutes to sort of prepare, but you don't really know what you're going to deal with. But there's also the other aspects where you have to maintain your focus, maintain your cool, maintain compassion, but at the same time, you're dealing with multiple dynamics that all happen at once that you don't have time to predict.
Right.
And to add to that, you and your team can't get it wrong.
Right.
Because
very fast-paced decision making.
That's right.
Yes.
And so that inner calling that you had and have morphed, transitioned into more municipal leadership and community care.
Right.
Tell me about that.
So in 2015 is when I decided to transition over to a different calling that we've referenced to. I made the decision after talking with the family about city council. The seat was becoming opening in my single member district, and there was a few issues that I just wanted to make the difference in. That calling, as you referenced to, is how can I have an impact on my community? How can I help the citizens we are all in it together, trying to make the best of what we have in our area? So in 2015 and then 2016, ran for city council for single member District 5. So that was a big transition. It transitioned from more of the medical field into the political realm, having no experience, did not anticipate ever going into politics. But it's that calling made it to where I could go in there and help an issue out, being a problem solver.
And you have to do it as judiciously as possible.
Correct.
But you don't have the luxury of an abundance of time to make all
Right.
these decisions. It's not that you are required to make snap decisions,
Right.
but just like in the ER, you have a set of tools that might even be limited, but you're going to use those tools to the best of your ability for the greatest good.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You're only given
little voices too, if you will. You know, the people who maybe are not as involved with municipal governance, and listening to them, and as a true representative, taking those concerns as the front man.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
right.
carrying that for them.
Using those limited tools that you're provided with and making the difference, that can be huge.
What is the most intriguing thing you've learned in the 4 years you've been county judge? What is the most interesting thing?
The dynamics between county and city have a lot of shared aspects, but they also have huge differences.
And we see that. So here we are in San Angelo, Texas, yet we're in the center of we're the trade hub for the county.
Yes.
And I'd like to explore that a little bit if we could, because in my role, which I don't know if very many viewers know this, or if I've repeated it enough, but as the Chamber of Commerce economic developer, I do work for the chamber, but really it's more of a station. I'm
Right.
stationed there. My contracts are with the county and with the city
Correct.
to perform outward-facing economic development, recruitment of industry,
Right.
and curation and care and expansion of existing incumbent industry, some of which has been here 70 years. So we do both. But what I find is that there's still some murkiness about county and cities, and how do they work together, and how are they different? So expand on.
So we have, with the city of San Angelo, we have a vast array of MOUs, memorandum of understanding, in all kind of aspects, whether it be economic development, emergency management, streets, road and bridge, seal coat paving, all of the different aspects where we work together. Because like you said, we're kind of isolated out here. We're an oasis west of I-35, out in the middle of West Texas. We struggle to make the funding. We struggle to make the services based off of our economic drive. So the relationship that we have with y'all, with the city of San Angelo, with the chamber, helps drive in that economy, helps drive in those businesses to help provide the funding for the services that we provide for our citizens. So the difference between county and city is, let's take this for an example. For a business coming into the city of San Angelo will have that jurisdiction, even though that
this company's
right.
We're hopefully inbound, and they're in the city limits.
They're in the city limits. So city of San Angelo will take the head on that. The difference between the city and the county is the city will have more avenues for regulations, good or bad,
Right.
zoning, permits, items like that. The county, outside of a Chapter 312 agreement, which is, we've heard the term.
We can talk a little bit more about that in a little bit here.
Right. We do not have so many statutory requirements or abilities to be able to place on a company. So that's one of the biggest differences that we see coming from a city to a county.
That's a fascinating transition, because having been in this role as the partner to the county and the city, working with corporations, enterprises, but also with small businesses. I mean, we work with a lot of two people and a little storefront.
Yeah.
Sometimes outside city limits, sometimes within city limits. And it's really funny that it's very interesting that you spoke about regulations and guardrails. And I find that fascinating, because there are a number of companies I've worked with where they're in the city limits and they have more of those regulations to comply with.
Correct.
And sometimes they're not all that enthusiastic about those, or they feel like it's overkill. Engineered drawings for a relatively small expansion of a steel shop or something like that. Yet in the county, it's open country.
It is.
I mean, it is the Old West entrepreneurialism.
Right.
You can dream it up. And I think what do they need to get from the county if they're building? Let's say they're building a building, to let's say weld steel together. Septic tank permit.
Septic tank permit. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
But yet there are other projects,
Right.
much larger projects, that really every community in the state is grappling with, and that's power generation, data centers, which have almost really become infrastructure when you think about it.
Right.
Because we're in a digital age, and it's just natural that those types of bulk developments would just become more prolific.
Right.
And yet, if a data center, for example, or a power plant or a manufacturer sites in the county outside the city limits, they have far fewer restrictions,
Right.
And regulations that they have to comply with,
Right.
to stay in compliance with city mandates.
So government code gives us the statutes that we live and abide by as a county.
Government code, that would be state.
State, yes. We are essentially an extension of the state.
Right. And I've heard that before. The county management is basically the local deputy of the state.
Exactly. So it's very limited on what we are able and capable of doing. So the development really resorts back to personal property rights. Is that landowner wanting to enter into a contract with this business without us being able to regulate? So the regulations being zoning, permits, items
We could
like
call that regulation for, let's call it economic development, smart growth.
correct.
But you could also say that's interference in the entrepreneurial framework.
Right. You want to be smart about it.
Yes,
You definitely want to be smart about
And
it.
the state's very protective of entrepreneurialism. We saw that with Senate Bill 6.
Absolutely. So within the city, you're not going to put a heavy industrial business right into a single family resident
You're not going to
neighborhood.
plop it down in the middle of a neighborhood.
But you also want to do some sort of smart business out in the county as well. So right now, if you have a subdevelopment out in the county, you could have an industrial neighborhood right across the fence.
You could.
The state of Texas, unlike other states and other counties within those states, let's take Virginia as example.
Came back from.
Right. Yes. They have a vastly more capability of the regulations.
The counties do.
The counties do. So the difference between us is how do we manage that on a smart sense without having, we want to be pro-business. We want to be able to invite those businesses into our community, but do it smart without having the heavy-handed burden.
And that's the dilemma that you face.
Right.
Is that the fewer regulations has helped the economic development effort.
Correct. Yeah.
In this region.
Right.
And we've had companies move here from Israel, from Germany, England, or UK, New Zealand. I'm trying to think, Mexico, Canada, several from Canada. The Canadians have adopted San Angelo kind of as their embassy.
Yeah.
So there's just international operations that have sited here. And part of the reason for that is because they could be free. They didn't have a lot of regulations. We've had several developments that have come to us and they've said, could you email us the county regs? And we say, yes, septic tank permit. And just call the folks at the TCEQ to make sure you get your air quality permit and that you're good to go.
Right.
And they love it.
Yeah.
So that's an attraction.
Right.
But then at the same time, let's look at it from a big picture, higher elevation. You have a whole lot of that going on in the county. And I think there's still a lot of room to grow. And I think that there's a lot of private property owners, ranch and farm owners that almost act as kind of a governor on that. But Austin, let's call it 40 years ago, was kind of the same philosophy. I mean, it wasn't rural like we are here, but there were a lot of wildlands. There was kind of a nice, good, even spread of different industrial sectors. The tech sector, I'm going back 40 years. The tech, and I wasn't around for that, but we saw the after effects. The tech sector was just kind of starting to get started with Texas Instruments and some of the more hardware manufacturers. 183 was a county road. I mean, it was like 2 lanes. 10 miles out of town. It was the country. And now look at it. Cedar Park and Leander are some of the hottest markets in the country.
Right.
And that there's a good likelihood that maybe not in 5 or 10 years, but looking down 15, really more 20 years, San Angelo being a very attractive city, 3 hours from the state capital, it won't be missed.
Right.
I mean, it's not going to be overleaped by industry. They're going to come looking for places to settle, frankly, because it's just a really nice place. And so you want to have those guardrails, but at the same time, you want to keep that welcome that open. And I know that's the dilemma that you and your commissioners, of whom I know well, have to grapple with.
Exactly. And
talk more about that.
So what you're also kind of alluding to and kind of touching the base with is the transportation sector, what we haven't discussed yet, but has a huge play in our development, the strategies of where we place and recruit. So we're on the verge of the 2 interstates, I-14 and I-27. Our whole visual outlook of what does our community look like in the future is, in a sense, resorting to where are those locations of those interstates?
Where are those routes going to site?
Where are they going to site? And then where is our industrial growth from there? Where is our residential growth from there? Where's the in-between? Where's the office space?
And that's the subjective part.
That is.
And that's where we thrive in the positions that we're in for that public submission of information. And I find that very valuable, and I know you do too.
Yes.
Do we have an idea of where I-14 and 27 are going to be sited? Do we have that yet?
Well, in a sense, yes.
I think we know the basic corridors.
Yeah, US 87 will be the gist of I-27. Then it will wrap around our North Loop 306.
Right.
And right now, looking through...
in anticipation of that.
Correct.
Years ago,
yeah.
In the 90s.
And then we're working with the interchange to hit 277 down to Del Rio. Now, the whole purpose of 27 is to get from Laredo, spur up to Del Rio, and up to Alberta, Canada, and everything in between. Branches out towards the breadbasket of America.
So we're connecting as our past Mayor Brenda Gunner with repeated it constantly and consistently: food, fuel, and fiber.
Right. If you look at the map, the central United States is lacking that transportation for the food, fuel, and fibers to be expedited.
27, which exists and is flagged as I-27 in certain parts of the country, will connect up to I think it's the Theodore Roosevelt Expressway.
Right.
And then it turns into, once it goes over the Canadian border, it turns into the Eastern Alberta Trade Corridor, I think is
that's the name of that one. Yes.
Going up through central Alberta.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth noting that when you look at Interstate 35, which just bifurcates the United States, it massively traveled trade and personal passenger corridor.
Right.
27 parallels it.
Right.
It doesn't go to the exact same location, but it basically parallels it.
The purpose of it is to relieve the congestion off of 35, transport it more central, and head north.
And that's why for our viewers, some may know, some may not, that we've had over the past 5 or 6 years a real notable influx of Alberta, Canada-based heavy haul companies locating their U.S. headquarters in San Angelo.
They're very strategic.
3 of them.
Yes.
And that's very strategic. Tell me a little bit, if we can transition, if you want to expand a little bit more on the relationship between the mayor, the city council, the county judge, and the county commissioners, and how they work together.
Okay.
I think that's a really important point to explore, and I'll just add quickly as I can, having that interplay between the 2 camps, service camps, rather elegantly, has been noted by us, and I think we're pleased with that collaboration. But at the end of the day, it's the customers that really make the decisions for us.
Right.
And I've shared this with you, but I'm happy to share this on Moves That Matter podcast, that many companies that we've visited with, some we've landed, recruited to San Angelo, without any prompting, noted that.
Right.
And that's why I've shared that with the mayor, with the city council members, publicly and privately, and with you and the county commissioners. The customer notices that the household members know how to work well together.
Yes.
And what's been pretty neat is that that's rare. I've learned that over the past 11 years. That's actually exceedingly rare.
We have a very
Common to have cities and counties
right.
in the same 10 mile radius, embedded with
Right.
each other,
Right.
very acrimonious towards each other.
So we have a very
Tell me about that.
very unique interchange and relationship out here in West Texas with Tom Green County and the city of San Angelo. It's not unheard of hearing from other elected officials within our own state and other states that it is a surprise that we talk with our city council.
Yeah, actually
Because-
talk to them.
Because they don't have good relationships in other areas like we do. And that relationship and that interchange is going to be key to make sure that mom and dad aren't fighting from within.
Exactly. And that's why I use the family household
Yes.
analogy.
So if that is a key aspect of recruiting a business. If mom and dad are fighting, they can see that, and they don't want to establish their business in that house. So if we have a good relationship with the mayor and the county judge, the city council, the commissioner's court, that business is more than likely going to say, I like that area.
They have.
I want to
You know this, but I'm telling the
right.
public they have.
I
They've
want to-
made that
uproot my family and move there
right.
for business.
2.5 years ago, we had a factory from Pennsylvania that we, for a long time, thought was just expanded
Right.
into the Southwest United States. And when it came press release time, they said, don't run anything. And we said, that's fine. That's why we vetted it through you first. Why? Well, some folks aren't going to move to San Angelo. We're like, well, who's that? He said, well, we're relocating the entire factory within a 72-hour window to San Angelo.
Yeah.
And they'd been to San Angelo only 3 times. And one of the notes that we made in the file when we closed that transaction of the manufacturer was county, city work together.
Yeah. And
in fact, it's kind of funny, and I'm celebrating this with you publicly on this podcast because I'll add about 4 or 5 days ago, I had a conversation with a colleague of mine in Iowa. And we were talking about large-scale power plants, solar power plants. And he made a comment that was really funny. And he said, how do you pass messages from city on to county?
pick up the phone and call them.
Go talk to him. He said, oh, okay, good. So it's not a problem. I said, no, not a problem for us. And I said, what's it like in your neighborhood? He said, well, we have to have somebody pass a note and try and get a conversation going at an off-site location. I thought, wow, it's terrible.
It's
That's
it is. It's almost having Robert's rules of engagement within
we're going to
intergovernmental bodies
message and throw up a test balloon and see what
and see what happens.
What we don't want
Smoke
to do
signals.
is- we're going to send up a smoke signal, and we can always retract it if we need to. And I thought, my goodness,
Now we pick up the
what
phone and call each other.
impediment to economic development. And the customers see this.
Right.
Some customers say, well, we're just used to those complicated political processes, and I guess we just deal with it if we're going to drop $400 million in a county,
Right.
another part of the country.
Yeah, no, our goal out here is to uncomplicate that through communication.
And that is very noted by many industrial sectors. And you can't, it's not like anybody's being paid to do that or getting a bonus for doing that. That's just personality based.
Right.
And I think that's why we've had a lot of successes in the Concho Valley and in Tom Green County with our smart growth economic development.
Right. I agree.
So let's talk about some of the issues that we've seen and some of the development types we've seen in county. I mean, it's all county. So even if you're in the city limits, you're still in county.
Right.
Data centers, nationally, globally, are really becoming very prolific.
Right.
They've existed for 50 years. The data centers have existed probably longer than that, but commercial data centers are kind of a new phenomenon. When I was in Austin, there were a few that were probably 20,000 to maybe 50,000 square feet. And that was really a reaction. I'm giving you a little bit of history on the viewers. Those racks or rack warehouses or rack spaces, as we sort of customarily called them, in the early 2000s, were really basically just a response to the market because companies, CPAs, doctors' offices, car dealers, they were taking up very valuable space within their operations for stacks and stacks and stacks of servers to store their digital data.
Right.
And they would have to contract with companies to manage that, bring in new equipment, replace old equipment. Many stories of damage due to weather or an accident, or the sink was left on in the mop closet, soaked 3 of them. And so grassroots basic need to get your digital storage offsite in a secure location that you could just pay a rent fee to and not have to worry about.
Right.
And that's really how it started. And with the advancement of the digitization of business, because you probably remember, maybe you're in college at that time or early in your surgical career, we would hear this a lot. We're going to go paperless.
Right.
Going paperless.
We are in the digital age.
And
so if you think
data centers are a response to that, to store those bits and bytes, that we've been told 80 to 90% of those files will never be looked at again.
Right.
But you got to save them because you don't know what 20 to 10% you're going to need.
Exactly.
So there's the dilemma.
Exactly.
So where do we store it all?
You're exactly right. We're in the digital age, so that storage has to go somewhere. So I was just up in Washington, D.C. for National Association of Counties legislative conference. The hot topic in many discussions were data centers. And one of the individuals up there was on a panel, was a commissioner in Loudoun County.
Which is Virginia.
Which is in Virginia.
Explain to the viewers, Loudoun County is famous in the data center sector.
Yes, they've been doing it for years. 70% of the global...
Loudoun County is a very beautiful country.
It is. 70% of the global emails go through their data center.
70%.
70% of the world's emails goes through their data center in their community. So what I'm thinking and theorizing is that...
Why is that a benefit?
Well,
centralization.
I wouldn't necessarily say that's a benefit, or if you're seeing the data center age pop up for repetitiveness, for interconnectability, to make sure that if one data center goes down, it is backed up elsewhere. Because we've seen it both on the financial world, personal world. If data goes down, it could be in a world crisis. So if
that is certainly a possibility,
right?
Maybe a remote possibility, but the consequences of having 70% of the globe's emails transitioning through Loudoun County, Virginia, the consequences of a failure, whether it's a short-term 2-second power glitch or whether it's a 10-day delay,
right?
Whatever it might be. The strategic impact could be very severe to the global economy and national security.
Right.
I threw out there that comment, why is that a benefit?
Yes.
Knowing that you would probably respond with, well, there's a benefit because it's all centralized and you have all the same techs. You know where everything is, but it could be a liability because it's all in the same place.
Well, and you just said it too.
County, for those who are watching, is very famous in the data center sector.
Right.
It's really the hub of certainly the North American data center sector.
Right. And you just touched on it also. I was going to say that, but the national security sector of it is huge. All of our data as a United States citizen, we want to keep that local. We want to make sure that it is not being used by any of our adversaries. We've seen the talks with TikTok, how China has control of that and what information is being leaked out of our citizens through TikTok If you're on a military installation, a lot of them, they do not allow that format coming through, because with China owning and that data that you are uploading to, personal data, financial data, it is out there for somebody to take. So if the biggest concern, national security wise, if you're wanting to take out your opponent, a lot of people think hit the pocketbook. So if you start crashing a financial status of a country or a business, then it can be a detriment. So spreading it out, keeping our information local, and the vast amount of information is unheard of what is going through. Pictures, emails, files.
So with the hot topic of data centers in the Concho Valley, that has been brought to the conversation by these speculative developers
Right.
on many occasions. Because like any economic developer or mayor or citizen or county judge, one asks, what is it about our neighborhood that is attractive to you? Is it just the basics? Is it just, land and power? There's more to it than that.
Right.
It actually is quite strategic, and I don't know that it's necessarily mandated by the federal government to spread out data hosting, but I certainly think it's a good idea.
Right.
And we've heard a lot about that, and that's what I'd like to transition a little bit into the resources used for these types of developments. Power and water. I mean, those are the two big ones.
Right.
In the past several months, there's been a lot of, I think, frankly, very constructive questions and discussion, mostly on social media, probably some on TikTok.
Yeah.
We'll go there some other time, about those resource uses.
Right.
And what have you learned so far?
So far as
journey,
the two big ones, water and energy. The questions were, how much do they use? Where are they going to get it from? And how is it going to affect me? We've come to realize that the new age data centers do not use as much water as the first generation data centers.
Gen 3s and the Gen 4s,
right?
Generation, meaning newer models.
Right. The newer models, efficiency. They do not use,
which is who we've been talking to.
Right. It's on a daily basis, they use around what a hotel does, if that.
Which is 30 to
25 to 30,
maybe
1,000 gallons a day.
1,000 gallons for a 250 room.
Depending on the size, of course, of the data center. Mm-hmm. Energy, ERCOT has already been tasked by the state of Texas to provide more energy. And that energy, that is the
Reliability Council of Texas. What is their job?
Their job is to regulate and to have that interconnect and supply the energy through the state of Texas to the customer. The biggest question was, if they're coming in and using this energy, how is it going to affect my bill? We've already seen that task of the generation for energy through legislation come across us. The usage fees are already built in to your bills. A business such as a data center coming in to connect is not going to drive up energy costs, but with the strategic supply of both natural gas energy, renewable energy through wind and solar, like we've seen in our area and it's seen in our county, is providing that straight to the grid. One thing that we will probably see, the next topic of discussion after data centers, could possibly be nuclear energy, molten salt reactors. We see that at Abilene Christian University. They have an MSR, or creating one. It is not as a Chernobyl kind of a meltdown. If it happens, it is contained and it forms a salt. That's what that molten salt would be. That energy in one MSR can supply, depending on the size relative, could supply the energy for a city or two.
So 500 to 600 megawatts.
So if we look and see if we look to see how can we evolve our energy capacity to incorporate nuclear along with the wind, solar, natural gas, then we can be 100% self-sufficient on our energy. And the concern is a moot point. The water is becoming a moot point. It takes an initial charge for the water to come in for the cooling systems. And
It's basically a radiator.
it's basically
It's really what it is.
a radiator.
I've been told it's, and we've seen the engineering on it, it's a closed loop system.
Right. Water mixed with glycol creates it as a lubricant, cools down the systems. It's one-time charge, and then other than that, it's a daily usage like a hotel. But the benefits of that is the taxable value that you see as a community. And that taxable value is something that we haven't seen ever. This is how those conversations connect with city county leaders and that business owner. How is that going to affect our community positively or negatively? What we're seeing, the positive is outweighing the negative at this point. The concerns that we have can be solved through the taxable base. And as a state of Texas, Senator Charles Perry has an initiative for all things water in Texas. Can we, as a state, in junction with the data centers coming in, partner with them to create the water system that we have of his plan, so we can self-sustain and the whole entire state could be an oasis at that time, whether it be desal, whether it be brackish, produced water, items like that. How can they partner with us? If they want to use water, can we have those discussions? And it's the communication.
High degrees of efficiency.
High degrees of efficiency.
I think that's what's really impressed me with these discussions that we've had.
Right.
Is the amount of efficiency that these data centers are employing. And it's kind of funny, the conversations we've had with the engineers for this one particular project in the city limits on the north side of town that's being formulated. Talking to the engineers is really fun. That's very interesting. And that's what you got to love about engineers. They're black and white.
Right.
And they're not politicians. They're not salesmen. They just tell it straight up like it is. And the conversations I've had with several of them is that the more water you use, the more power it takes to treat the water as a vector for pulling heat out of the building.
Right.
And you want to use as little as possible, and you want to create maximum efficiency. And he said, this one guy told me, he said, that's why these data centers are so expensive. The shell, meaning the walls and the roof, that's not relatively expensive. It's the mechanical systems that's really expensive because they're so high efficiency. And what's interesting in this one development that I toured, which I think is worth mentioning to our audience, is this one development in Austin. They were very proud to show me conduit and components protruding out of part of the building. And they set me up. They said, do you know what that is? I said, why would I know what that is? It's a piece of metal and I don't know, it's some big thing.
Right.
They said, we don't either. But it's conduit that has been pre-built into the structures, because in some point in the next 5, 10, or 15 years, there will be some form of ultra efficient cooling that we know is in some form of experimental development. And these buildings will be made to accept that without modification, which I thought was kind of neat. So, I had one.
They're adapting themselves.
I had a data center developer tell me, he said straight up, he said, we don't want to pay for water. So the less we use, the better off we are.
Right.
Which I thought was nice, because it's a conscientious comment to us as people in the community, that they're not just in to build it and then move on.
They're not.
One of the things that you and I've done, and the mayor's done,
Right.
and the city council members in these communications is, and I think it caught several of these prospective site selector developers for these data centers off guard. We said, are you a merchant developer or are you an owner operator?
Right.
And yet they could tell real quick which answer was the right answer, and that is owner operator. We want companies that are here for the long haul, for the long duration.
Right.
Johnson and Johnson, perfect example.
Right.
Meaning a developer that's not going to come in, build whatever they want, and then sell it to someone else. We're going to keep that continuity. So I think that's something that I know you've had a lot of conversations about.
Yeah.
Tell me about what happens with the county, and if you are comfortable speaking about hypothetical city budgets, if a data center or several data centers, high density computing, land, what happens?
Budgetary.
What does that really mean?
So when you see right now, we have around $11.6 billion worth of taxable value in Tom Green County. Property. Taxable property value. When you see high capacity taxable entities as a single entity coming in that could possibly double your taxable value, it's scary and exciting at the same time. The way that we're set up and the regulations through the state of Texas is we are regulated on how much revenue we can bring in. We are capped at 3.5% year over year.
That's so counties in Texas don't look at their budget and say, hey, we need to go up 25%, send the bills to everybody.
Exactly. You can only do that in a time of disaster up to a certain degree. So with that taxable value coming onto our rolls, simple equation, taxable value multiplied by your tax rate is what your levy is. Inversely related, that taxable value goes up, your rate would go down relative to slight growth of that 3.5%. And the 3.5%, what a lot of people don't understand is it's not really take a number, multiply it by 3.5 over 100%, and that's your new value. We have an 82-step calculation that we go through, taking in different factors to see what that rate would be. Then you calculate what the 3.5% relative to the voter approval rate and the no new revenue rate. No new revenue rate is your budget stays the same year over year. The possibility of that happening is slim unless you're in a very high growth area that is making that value go up astronomically and your rate dropping to where you can still grow, still provide more services, raises to your employees, equipment, building repairs, items like that. So you've seen that in the I-35 sector where growth is astronomical, rates drop, but they're still growing their budget. So it's not a 100% inverse relation.
Because the private industrial and residential and retail growth is so explosive.
Right.
You can actually increase your budget size. You increase the take, if you will.
So what we've seen out here in the county and the city is we've always struggled with raising revenue without affecting our citizens negatively.
Residential.
Right. Residential homeowners, your tax bill, what you pay for your house, for public safety, fire, police, infrastructure on your roads, your water, items like that. When you see a high capacity taxable value infrastructure building coming in, business coming in, now we will see what we have in the other areas. We have a one-time chance to make it right. So what we've heard as elected officials is public safety is number one. We have to provide a livable income for our sheriff's office, or sheriff deputies, and our police department, police officers. Road and bridge. How do you do that? And you're right. It doesn't stop there. It's overall. How do you do that if you're capped in a sense with inflation higher than the 3.5%? We've seen inflation over the last few years equating to from 2020 to 2025 over 24%, I believe. Multiply that times 3.5, you're below that 25%. So where do you make those strides up? It's driving in those businesses with high capacity. It's driving that tax rate down to where it's taking the burden off of our citizens. And accomplishing your budget in a sense to where you grow the services for the citizens without raising their bill.
So let's touch for a minute on comments that we hear, not necessarily directed at anybody in particular, but comments we hear, and is that municipalities spend too much money and they don't manage their money well. And why is it every single season there's always a push? Well, wow, we barely made budget, but really need more. Tell me about what are known unofficially as unfunded mandates, adding to the stack that you just mentioned a second ago.
We can be here all day on unfunded mandates.
What is an unfunded
mandate?
It's not an official term, but it's
Right.
become kind of parlance within municipal management, city management, economic development.
It could
State
be
legislation.
a new law passed that requires a city or a county to do something without passing the funding down to that. So
the state mandates Tom Green County, Tarrant County, every county in Texas, you will provide these
This.
services
but we're not going to give you the money for it.
starting next year. Figure it out.
Figure it out. That's exactly right. Without going into a specific example, that's an umbrella of exactly what an unfunded mandate is. The figure it out. You have to do this. Figure it out.
Because you are effectively a deputy of the state.
Right. And if you figure it out,
Or ordering the platoon, you will do this.
Right.
We can't necessarily fund it or fully fund it.
Right.
We'll give you some funding.
it will impact your...
You're required by law to commit to those actions. You have to do it.
Right. It'll impact your local property tax.
It will over time. It has to.
Right.
It can't not.
Right.
I think that's something that we have experienced. Not necessarily you and I, but I mean, in the economic development front, where municipalities are put under nearly impossible pressure. And I say that because my experience with Tom Green County and neighboring counties, relationships we have with our neighbors, several projects that we've worked on spill over into their counties, or they come into our county.
Yeah.
Say it's a solar power plant or something like that, or a transmission line or a highway. So you get to know them.
Right.
And those mandates that are handed down almost every legislative session to the counties begins to mount.
Right.
And I think here's the big challenge. I've spoken to so many municipal managers, sheriffs deputies, and road and bridge employees, and they just make it happen.
Right.
And I think people don't really understand. There's almost a sense of volunteerism and sense of duty. When I first came here, as an example, in 2014, I'd gotten to know your predecessor, Steve Floyd, very popular long-term
Yes.
county judge, wonderful human being. And he was very open with me about the fact that, and I don't remember the number, and I'm not going to try to remember it, but it was a substantial amount of county employees could hand in their badge, their keys, and retire with full benefits, and go fishing or golfing.
Right.
Whatever they want to do. They've earned it. They've been here 35, sometimes 40 years, some outlier cases, and they stay because they just have a sense of duty.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be dramatic.
No, there is a
I
vast
know a lot
majority of them.
City employees who, it's not just the mission and the paycheck. It's way more than that. It's almost a volunteerism to a degree.
Right.
And we see this. I mean, we see this in other municipalities, in other cities. But I think that's worth at least making a comment that I personally know several county employees who, why don't you retire? You're eligible,
Right.
and you're 4 years past when you could have retired. Well, I don't want to leave the man on my right and the man on my left. I can't do that to them.
Yeah.
Because we'll have 18 guys left for these projects, and I can't do it to them morally. And I've heard that story repetitively.
Right.
And I think that that's worth noting that. So here where I'm kind of going with this is, if you will, the state legislature, the lawmakers see that. We've passed 8 new mandates. Let's call them new mandates, and they're performing. Well, they can do it.
Right.
So if we do more, I'm sure, confident that they'll do it.
Right.
And yet, I think there is a degree of sacrifice.
Right.
That's why it comes with that.
That's why keeping in touch with your legislature is a key aspect that you have to do. That is mandatory as a county official. If there's looking at passing a new law and it has a fiscal note impact to a county, they need to know about that. So contacting them like we do from county to city, we also do from county to state and city to state. Call your legislature, have a good relationship with them, your representative, your senator, to where make sure they know, hey, if this passes, this is going to affect us by this way.
That's an awesome point, and I'm really glad you brought that up. For those who aren't aware, the Chamber of Commerce lobbies, and we will bring issues not as a county or city official, because we're not, but we as citizens will testify before the State Affairs Committee, Business and Commerce Committee of the Senate. Regularly, we do visits to the legislators' offices. Every 2 years, we will usually send a group to Austin for sometimes up to a week, right, if we need to what we call build awareness. We don't use the word lobby.
Right.
Lobby has a different paid gun is really what a lot of lobbyists basically are. What we do is and I know several county officials will do this. Rick Bacon, very successful several years ago on awareness building.
Right.
And I've found that to be very successful. And when you can have a meeting with 5 or 10 state legislators, unless they're just absolutely entrenched on a position, most of them will say, thank you for taking the time to come and educate us on this issue.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Right.
And we can't know. And yet when you're down there, and I know you've been at the state legislature many times, you'll see a lot of what are known in the halls as suits, paid guns,
yes,
paid legislators.
You can point them out.
Paid lobbyists. And yet you don't see as many citizens as you'd hope. And it's the citizens' house.
Right.
It belongs to them.
Right.
And I think that what I would say is I think we can agree that this, to a degree, is a call to action.
Absolutely.
Because, when 4 or 5 citizens from the Concho Valley show up at 2 or 3 state senators' offices, they literally drop what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
Literally. I mean, they will stop what they're doing, hang up the phone, whoever they're talking to, and they will intercept that group and they will listen. And they will usually have a staffer taking notes.
Right.
Thanks for telling us. We didn't understand these issues.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling us. We can do more about this.
Right. Right.
And I think that that's something that is incumbent upon the citizenry to get involved. And what I've found, my experience has been senators and state reps love it.
Yeah, they do. They like to see us.
They love to get the intel from the boots on the ground that is not spun with a position by a certain industry or special interest, and they love that.
Right.
And so I think that's something that we could talk about for a lot longer. But we'll move on. What do you think are strategically? So we're going to go from tactics to strategy. What are the biggest economic development opportunities that you see going 10 to 15 years? That's your horizon.
Okay.
What do you see happening in Tom Green County? Let's give us a 10-year snapshot.
Okay.
And you're not going to be held to this. I want to know, in your mind, where are we going as a central Texas county?
Right.
Where are we going?
So I'm glad you asked that. We're seeing the spur of it, the data center age. the technology age, how are we bringing that into rural West Texas? One thing we're also working out is through the Council of Governments is a spaceport feasibility project. We could see in the near future, if it looks feasible, our West Texas region becoming a good hub for vertical launch as a spaceport. That is a huge industry that we haven't seen outside of NASA in Houston, being as local relative to where we are in location. What they like to see is land, available land, low density population, and the capability of vertical launch. I think you're going to see the industry of surface oil field to more diversification as we've seen in the energy sector, along with technology, space, financials. We can become, as we are almost in West Texas, a economic hub for a vast array of businesses.
A multiple array
Right.
of highly diverse
Something to where you can't,
industrial sectors.
right. Something where you can't say, oh, I know Tom Green County and San Angelo, they do this, or they do this. They do everything.
Now a data center,
Right.
and let's say a spaceport. One of the critiques that I've had levied at me, and understandably, I understand it, is, well, once those are built, what's the benefit? So you're benefiting a private company in the citizens' territory, despite ownership or title. It's their territory, correct? What's in it for the community? And that's a very good question. It's a very good question. I'll submit, and then you submit. Data centers, there are tangents and there are relationships with higher education.
Right.
Angelo State University, Howard College, Goodfellow Air Force Base.
It's the services provided from the capability of having those in our region that benefits the citizens in a whole.
You know, here's one thing that I learned from our friends in Pflugerville. Neat little economic, really dynamic little economic development team. They're so fun. I like talking to them.
Yeah.
The level of highly skilled, high voltage, low voltage electricians and HVAC mechanical technicians in that area, on that North I-35 corridor, has blossomed.
Right.
Because when you look at a data center, it's racks and racks and racks and racks and racks of little servers,
right,
hosting websites and all the Dropbox and Microsoft Word stuff we never delete,
right,
stored there. It's an attic.
Yep.
But the technicians for the servers themselves and the cooling and mechanical and electrical feed systems are in very high demand and very low supply.
They are.
And so even though we hear these comments that AI is going to take away so many jobs, I had a data center engineer tell me this week, except for people in the trades,
right,
there is becoming an even almost a desperate increase in those trades, not necessarily for construction, although that is high, but for the people that maintain these things. You're looking at a mechanical system that's about the size of an aircraft carrier.
Right.
That needs constant attention. And you have a very small pool of technicians able to train up and deploy out to these data centers.
Right.
So there's a if you will, blue collar aspect to this. And I don't really like that term, but just it's a common term.
They will provide jobs.
That has made a very big impact. And then just the actual hardware technicians who are constantly monitoring, maintaining, installing, decommissioning, and repairing these servers, thousands of them. So there are definite benefits to that. Angelo State University is very interested. And San Angelo has been in the data center business actually for a long time.
We really have. It's been here, and a lot of people don't know about it.
Good fellow. Right. You've got until kind of recently, USAA's backup center was here.
Right.
Decades until it co-located to Plano.
Right.
That building is now being repurposed into a data center, cybersecurity focused center of excellence. which is
Right,
when I
with
say
ASU.
the sign is out for
It is. It is.
although that's kind of been in plans for a while. You've got very potential data center involvement with SAISD, Howard College, the presence of the data center related management information services, networking, and cybersecurity initiatives and mission accomplishments at ASU has definitely caught the attention of these data centers, and they're hyperscaler, they're tenants who are in that business. That's what they do. And having a center of excellence in San Angelo, hubbed at ASU, has really had a magnetic attraction past land and water availability.
Right.
Way past land.
Right.
Water, I don't worry too much about water because it's such small amount, really small amounts.
Right.
But just having that center of excellence has, we've been told, and we feel very confident that this is completely correct, a big impact on the attractiveness of the Concho Valley and specifically Tom Green County for these data centers.
Right.
And I say plural because there are others that are looking in the area, kind of just scoping out the area.
Right.
And then of course you've got, you've got land readiness, you've got infrastructure longevity, which we have.
Yes.
And then you've got, I think, in my view, excellent fiscal responsibility both at city and county.
Right.
We've talked on a lot of subjects today.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to close with or discuss? Anything hot topic?
No, I think we covered the vast array of everything. A lot of changes, good changes coming to our area, and it's how we respond to make the best of it.
I heard a quote, "The price of progress is high."
Yes.
And this is a lesson that I've learned from other economic developers in other parts of the country, and that is, unless community leadership and the citizenry embrace the growth and curate it and guide it and invest their thoughts into it and their actions into it, it's going to happen anyway.
Right.
My old hometown of Austin, Texas, it's kind of almost become legend that in the 80s and 90s there was an understandable fear. And I was at UT in the 90s, and I remembered that time frame where there was a growing fear that Austin was going to very rapidly turn into Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against Houston, but Houston is just absolutely constant, totally explosive growth.
Right.
No zoning.
Yeah.
You could build anything.
Anywhere.
You want to put a steel mill next to a daycare center? Go for it. That's why
Smart development is what we need.
Smart development guides that and keeps that kind of thing from happening. And yet it will happen. And this is what I remembered as a younger guy in the real estate development business in Austin, speaking with demographers and economists who said the growth is going to hit Austin hard,
Right.
whether the communities want it to or not. But now's your opportunity to guide it. Get industry to do what is right for the community, because oftentimes they just don't know.
Right.
And so I think that's a fair way to close.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate
the
it.
time to,
Yes.
to reveal more about your good character and the work that you do for our county and for our citizens, and let's keep working together for the future.
Well, it's a true blessing to be able to do it with you.
I know you think it that way. Awesome. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks again, Lane Carter.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us again on our most recent Moves That Matter podcast. This is a podcast in collaboration with the City of San Angelo and the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce. I'm Mike Looney. Enjoyed talking to Lane Carter, and we'll see you on the next podcast.